Welcome to HP Fanfiction. Support me by subscribing the channel. Also, like and share the video to keep me motivated to make more videos like these. Get the French and Dutch on the fire, the Prefectus Praetori yelled as he entered the room. Tell them I want to share some information about Black. Set it up as a conference call if you can. Yes, sir. Several voices called out as handfuls of flue were tossed into fireplaces. We've got them, sir. Good. The Prefectus Praetori sat and faced the two figures in the flames. I need some information, and I am willing to give information. It might be best for you to tell us what you know so that we can fill in the blanks for you. A shadowed man replied from the French fireplace. You said you had something to share about Black? Hoofd van de Stadstovenaars, Sanevamir asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes, I do. The Prefectus Praetori agreed impatiently. He's in my city and he's been running around doing God knows what for the last 2 days, and I want to know what he's capable of. He was hired by the Swiss Guard to check some wards 3 days ago, the Prefectus Praetori answered quickly. And he made a comment about the new section being a different color than the older sections. Then he spent 2 days doing God knows what. The Prefectus Praetori forced himself to calm. He popped up again in a bar belonging to one of the heads of the mafia. He sat down next to the aforementioned head and calmly told him that if the mafia did not follow a few rules, including not following Dark Lords and confining their killings to other members of the mafia, then they would all be killed and that Black would start over with the next group. How is that possible? The shadowed man bit out. To gain that ability, we knew he was insane, but this... Please go on. The two other heads of magical law enforcement took several seconds to process the new information. He thanked Black and paid for his drink. The Prefectus Praetori wiped his brow. He then told his men that attacking Black would be suicide and called a meeting with the other heads. How did your head take that? Sanevamir leaned forward to hear the answer. Would you mind telling me what you know about the man? Their Italian colleague asked. I don't mean to be rude, but I need every second I can get. We're terribly sorry, the shadowed Frenchman apologized. But every time we hear something new about the man, it turns out to be more astounding than the last bit of information. Miss Vermeer, I believe you had the honor of meeting him first. Yes, I did, the woman agreed. He came to Amsterdam and stopped a group of Death Eaters that say they were tracking Harry Potter. She ignored the other two's explanations of surprise. One of my people later reported that Black had her remove a tracking spell, so it seems likely that Black transferred the spell from Potter to himself. After that, he spotted every tail we assigned, including the ones under invisibility, and according to reports coming from England, he also managed to discover a new species of magical animal without the Watchers noticing. Is that all? Black came to Paris and also spotted every one of our tails, the Frenchman began. He also seems to have some sort of undetectable charm or field that alerts him of any intrusion into his room. While he was here, he allowed us to look into his medical history, and aside from a rather long list of past injuries, we found something odd. Black has apparently subjected himself to some sort of process that makes his blood deadly to anyone but himself. And our healers speculate that in addition to making him immune to nearly every toxic substance known to man, that it may have also boosted his natural healing ability. Black has also shown that he has at least some skill in wandless magic. I hesitate to add it, the Frenchman paused, but due to some of the knowledge he showed, many are starting to believe that Black may have been here with the resistance during the Second World War. Thank you, the Prefectus Praetori gave a rare smile. I do have to ask why you didn't tell me that Black was coming in my direction, though. Thank you, the Prefectus Praetori shook his head. I suppose it was too much to hope that we could keep an eye on him if he didn't want to be followed. We didn't know, the Frenchman shrugged his shoulders. Black gave us the slip by taking a portkey to Monte Carlo. It took us a minute to track the portkey and another 35 seconds for the locals to get on the scene, but they lost his trail because of the excitement resulting from a very large wind. The Frenchman turned away from the fire and began conversing with an unseen person. I've just been informed by our colleague in Monte Carlo that the wind that distracted his followers was from a bet placed by Mr. Black. He licked his lips, Further investigation reveals that the table had been charmed by one of the other players. Interviews with the croupier revealed that Mr. Black spent several moments staring at the table before placing his bet. Our colleague also says that this investigation was prompted by the size of the win and that the casino has chosen to honor the bet and send it along with a rather substantial reward for fingering the player. The Frenchman turned away from the fire to converse with the unseen person again, who confessed to being part of a much larger ring of cheaters. "Sir," Folocini ran towards his commander, "you're not going to believe this." The other two said their goodbyes, and the head of the Praetorian Guard wished once again that he had taken the retirement that had been offered the year before. "What is it?" The Praefectus Praetori closed his eyes and waited for the worst. "You're saying Black killed them?" "I think I know what Black was doing in the city." Folocini was ready to burst with excitement. 2 days ago Anthony Consiglio died, apparently of natural causes, and several of his lieutenants died on the way to pay their respects in what we thought was an accident. It all came together when I heard about Black's conversation with the head of one of the families. Folocini was shaking in excitement. Tony Consiglio would have never followed Black's rules, and it's likely his lieutenants would have followed their boss's lead even after death. "Sounds reasonable," the Praefectus Praetori nodded. "What do you suppose will happen when Consiglio's son figures this out?" "So you're saying that you think this man killed my father?" A middle-aged man wearing an expensive set of clothing asked with a raised eyebrow. "It looks that way, yes," another man in another expensive set of clothes agreed. "What do you want us to do?" "I'll arrange it, Mr. Consiglio," the second man agreed. "When do you want to do this?" "As soon as possible," Giovanni Consiglio replied quickly. "Grab another man," the middle-aged man replied. "Then the three of us are going to this black fellow's hotel room, and then we're going to show the world why they don't mess with the Consiglio family." The driver was summoned, and in less than an hour the three of them were standing in front of Harry's hotel room. "Then why don't we just use your driver?" the second man asked with a raised eyebrow. "He's big and knows how to keep his mouth shut." "Call him. I don't want Black to spend any more time above ground than necessary," Consiglio finished with a cold sneer. "Black? I'm going rip out your heart, you bastard," Consiglio cried as he rushed into the room. "Kick down the door. I want to surprise this bastard," Consiglio ordered coldly, "and when the time comes, I want to take this guy out myself." "You got it, boss," the driver agreed as he brought his massive foot crashing into the door. Harry looked up from his book at the man who had burst into his room. Dodging the man's first spell, Harry drew his wand and threw a few reductos at his mysterious attacker. "How could anyone be that fast?" Consiglio cursed to himself as Black seemed to disappear and reappear out of the path of his curses. "Stand still and die, you bastard." Diving for cover behind one of the couches in his room, Harry took a bit of time to think. "Akisho, crazy man." Consiglio screamed as he felt himself get thrown past his attacker and towards one of the windows that had been cracked in the early stages of the duel. Calling out a stereotypical no-ill as he flew through the window, he barely had time to realize what a bad idea going after Mr. Black had been before his body hit the street below. Turning towards the nearest threat and raising his wand, Harry's quick reducto reduced the man's wand to splinters, but did little to stop the charge, and before Harry had a chance to mutter another quick spell, he found himself encircled by the man's powerful arms as they attempted to squeeze the life out of his body. "Boss," the second man called, rushing towards their target. Giving a strangled cry, the driver turned and began running away, hoping that speed and distance would be enough to save his life from the monster behind him. Passing the elevators in a dead sprint, he flung open the door to the stairwell. As the edges of his vision began to go black, Harry attempted to break the man's grip, and all seemed lost, until one of his hands brushed against the polished bone handle of his new Pugio. Yanking the knife out of its scabbard, Harry plunged it into his attacker's stomach and brutally twisted it, when the man's grip lessened enough to grant him the freedom of movement to do so. His head then swiveled to regard the third man, the last man standing in the door. The driver stood frozen, too frightened to even scream as the blood-covered figure turned its head to watch him. The two of them stood, staring at each other for untold minutes, until the blood-covered figure took its first step forward towards its next victim. Harry slowly lowered his wand and dagger after the third man had left and took a slow look around the room, absent-mindedly casting a few repparos to fix the broken furniture. He sat down on the now undamaged couch and tried to figure out why these things always seemed to happen to him. If there was one thing that the team assigned to watch Mr. Black was good at, it was surveillance. They had honed their skills through years of playing cat and mouse with the family, and they had frantically called for backup when they noticed Giovanni Consiglio walk into Black's hotel along with 2 of his thugs. A team of 8 wizards arrived just in time to see a screaming man hit the street, shoulders dropping and fearing the worst. They approached the body to get their first look at the man they had failed to save. "Then we might not be too late to help Black," the leader of the strike team replied quickly. "Alpha team up the stairs, Bravo in the elevators." "That's Giovanni Consiglio," one of the surveillance team cried out in shock. "Look at his finger, he's wearing his father's ring." "Sir," the 2 teams called out as they entered the hotel at a dead run. Alpha team bounded up the stairwell, freezing when they discovered another body at the bottom of a flight of stairs. Consiglio's driver, another member of the surveillance team that was accompanying them, identified the body. "Looks like he was thrown down the staircase." Pausing only long enough to ensure that the man was dead, they continued up the stairs to link up with the other team. "Is there something that I can help you gentlemen with?" Harry asked the latest group of intruders calmly. The team rushed into the room and froze at the scene that awaited them. "On 3, the leader of the strike team whispered to his men after they had stacked on the ruined door. "Mr. Black?" the team leader asked slowly, his eyes refusing to move from the bloody corpse on the ground to his front. "Do you require any medical assistance?" the team leader asked nervously, "or any other kind of assistance?" "Yes?" Harry was having a hard time keeping himself from giggling. "What can I do for you?" "I think that we might want that," the team leader agreed. "Is that all right with you?" "No thank you," Harry shook his head. "But I suppose that you want me to come to the station to talk with you." "Of course it is," Harry nodded. "Sorry about that." Harry carefully wiped the blade clean his shirt sleeve, then replaced in its scabbard and his wand in its holster. With all the excitement it slipped my mind, Harry suppressed another giggle. "Would you mind stepping outside then?" The team leader motioned towards the door, "So that we can start collecting evidence." "Then would you mind lowering your weapons?" the team leader asked slowly. "They make my men a bit nervous." "Thank you," Harry nodded. "Won't take but a minute." "I don't mind that at all," Harry agreed. "Do you mind if I grab my things first?" The team leader hesitated and then took a close look at the expression on Mr. Black's face. "Don't think that will be a problem. Angelo, take 1 man and go report this," the team leader whispered after Black had left the room. "Yes, sir," the man agreed. "Do you know who that is on the ground?" "Salvatore Carrillo." The team leader was again staring at the body. "He was until today regarded as being one of the most dangerous men in Italy and the main suspect in the murder of my predecessor." "That's Carrillo?" Angelo asked wide-eyed. Black gutted him like a fish. "Sir." Angelo took one more look at the body before disappearing with a pop. He reappeared outside the headquarters of the Praetorian Guard. Rushing into the building, he nearly ran into his commander. "I know that," the team leader fought to keep the impatience out of his voice. "Now go report this. Did you get to Black in time?" "Angelo, the Praefectus Praetori," asked the breathless man. "Is Black still alive?" "He's alive, sir," Angelo nodded quickly, "and he doesn't have a scratch on him." "So you arrived in time to protect him from Consiglio and his thugs?" "No, sir," Angelo shook his head. "We arrived in time to see Consiglio hit the street." "We got there just in time to see a screaming man hit the street," Angelo began. "Black threw Consiglio through a window and we arrived just in time to see the end of it. While going up the stairs to Black's room, we came upon another body that was identified as being that of Consiglio's driver. And when we got to the room... "Tell me everything," the Praefectus Praetori commanded. "What is it?" "We found a man with his stomach ripped open, and Black calmly standing over it with a big grin on his face, like he had just won a prize." Angelo took a couple of deep breaths. "I wasn't sure why he would be so happy about it until I asked the captain who the dead guy was." "Who?" the Praefectus Praetori demanded. May I take a look at your knife, sir? The strike team leader asked politely. Salvatore Carilla decided to cut 9 where it is and start 10. This is what I have so far. Don't think I'll be doing much more tonight. Not at all, Harry replied, starting to calm down a bit. I was in my room and 3 men rushed in. I dueled the first a bit before he ended up going through the window. The second one grabbed me, and I'm afraid that I had to cut him up, and the third one ran out the door. This is a very interesting knife, the team leader commented. Would you mind giving me your statement? Of course, Harry nodded, handing it over handle first. Thank you for your time, sir, the team leader nodded, closing his book. We may have to ask you a few questions later to clarify a few things after forensics gets their report in. Not at all, sir, the leader nodded. But I'm afraid that I'll have to accompany you until I get authorization to let you go. Not a problem, Harry waved it off. Mind if we go downstairs? I feel that it may be time to check out of this hotel. The two of them walked down the hall towards the elevators and past the body of the driver that had been brought up and placed beside the others. Shame he had to die, Harry mumbled to himself after he noticed the body of the driver. I was going to let him go. I understand, Harry gave a short nod. You do what you have to do. Any response that the team leader may have made was cut off by the arrival of another man. Message from the Praetori. He says that Black is free to go if this looks like it was self-defense. What he had actually said was get him out of my city, but the messenger saw no need to annoy the wizard that had swatted Salvatore Carrillo like a fly. What is it? The team leader asked calmly. I do, the team leader gave a quick nod. You're free to go, Mr. Black. May I ask where you're going next? Switzerland sounds nice, Harry mused. Wherever it is, I hope it's quieter than my vacation's been so far. Have a good day, Mr. Black. The team leader watched in awe as the most dangerous man he had ever met calmly walked out of the building. Good evening, Mr. Black. The old man from before nodded and motioned towards an empty seat. I trust that you're doing well. Sighing in frustration, he entered the magical section of Rome and paused in front of the small bar that he had previously visited. He really needed a drink right now. After that he could find a way to get to Switzerland. Harry resisted the urge to scream as he walked towards the entrance to magical Rome. Why did these things keep happening to him? Was there some sort of curse on the Potter line that nobody had told him about? I wish that were true, Harry shrugged. Unfortunately, I've had a rather bad day. I was attacked by 3 men in my hotel room. Harry took a sip of the newly arrived drink, and things got a little violent. What happened? The old man motioned for the bartender to bring over a drink. You weren't hurt, were you? I see. The old man licked his lips nervously. What do you intend to do about the situation? No. Harry shook his head. Not a scratch. Thank you. Harry tossed a few coins on the table. It's only polite to let me pay this time. After all, you paid the last time. The way I see things, it's best to forget the whole situation ever happened. Harry finished his drink and stood up, and hoped that nothing like this ever happens again. I'm sure that it won't, Mr. Black. The relief on the old man's face was plainly visible. Have a good day, Mr. Black. Goodbye, Mr. Black, the old man called out to Harry as he walked out the door. And have a pleasant trip. Hello, Harry called out as he entered the apparently deserted shop. Is anyone here? Harry spent several minutes walking around the alley before he found a small shop advertising that it had the cheapest international portkeys in Rome. What? A head poked through a doorway that presumably led to a back room. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to arrive for another few minutes. You'll be wanting a portkey then? Yes, Harry confirmed. To Switzerland. Then I'll need to see your passport. The man held out his hand. After all, you'll be crossing a border. One moment, Harry dug around his pockets and handed his papers over to the shopkeeper. The man pulled out his wand and tapped the passport. If that's what you need, Harry took back his passport. His passport? What did you mean when you said that you expected me? Thank you, Harry accepted the 2 items. How much do I owe you? Thank you, and here you are. The man interrupted Harry and handed over Harry's passport along with a keychain bearing the Swiss flag. It has already been paid for by the prefect's praetori. The man smiled. He had his men go to every travel shop in Rome and tell them that any international portkey you bought would be at his expense, and that he would pay double the list price if we were able to get you out within the hour. That was nice of him, Harry smiled. Now about that question I wanted to ask. I'm afraid we won't have time for that, Harry. The man gave an apologetic smile. You see, I really wanted to get paid double, and to do that you portkey will have to leave right about now. Harry felt a pull behind his navel and the world began to spin. Welcome to Switzerland, a jolly-looking man said with a smile. May I see your papers, please? Sure, Harry handed over his passport and fought to wipe the look of annoyance off his face. Damn shopkeeper. I trust that you've had a good day, Mr. Muir. The customs agent glanced down at the passport. You Black. It's been a bit rough, but I have high hopes that things will quiet down. I see. The customs agent seemed to be unable to pull his eyes away from the small document. Was there something you needed? Harry asked, getting a bit worried about the man's odd behavior. No, sir, the customs agent answered quietly. I just didn't expect that I would ever meet you. Just check in with magical law enforcement while you're here. They've got a few messages that they'd like to pass along, and I also believe that some of them would like to chat with you over a beer if you have time. Thank you, Harry nodded. Do you have any suggestions on where I might find a good place to stay? There is an information desk right outside. The customs agent motioned towards the door. If you don't have anything else that you'd like to ask me, have a good day, Harry nodded and walked towards the exit. You as well, Mr. Black. The customs agent closed his line and waited until Mr. Black had walked through the exit. Then he quickly walked towards his supervisor. Mr. Black was just in my line. Did you tell him to get in contact with the police, eh? Yes, the agent nodded. He asked if there was anywhere that we wanted him to stay and I pointed him towards the information desk. Good job, the supervisor noted the time in his notebook. Out of curiosity, I have to ask, what was his first name? Mr. The customs agent shrugged. When I looked, that was the only thing in the section. I see, the supervisor spent a few minutes thinking. Go wait in the break room. I've got to go report this. We've found out what happened to Mr. Black, sir. The thug that had earlier offered to teach Mr. Black a lesson told his boss, Alberto Nacelli, nervously. Well? Black was attacked by Giovanni Consiglio, Salvatore Carrillo, and Consiglio's driver in his hotel room. Black tossed Consiglio through a window, spilled Carrillo's guts on the floor, and pushed the driver down a staircase. The man hesitated. Go on. The rest of this comes from my cousin Tony, the one who works in that bar the cops like to go to. On seeing his boss's nod, the man continued. They're saying that Black killed old man Consiglio and that he also staged the accident that wiped out Consiglio's men. One of them even swears that Black muttered something about how he was going to let Giovanni live and that it was a shame that he didn't get the hint and leave things alone. They also think that he was sitting in his hotel room, out in the open to see if anyone decided to come after him. Thank you, Alberto Nacelli nodded, and remind me to thank your cousin for the information. It helped bring things into focus. How, sir? Black said something when he paid for my drink. The old man leaned back in his chair. He said that he wasn't going to retaliate and that it was only fair that he paid for this one, since we paid for the last one. I thought that he was talking about the drinks, but now I'm not so sure. What do you mean, boss? It now looks like something happened to bring us to Black's attention, so he killed Consiglio and several of his men and set out some new rules to make us pay for annoying him. The old man smiled. For some reason he let Consiglio's son live, so when Consiglio's son tried to kill him, Black decided that it was his mistake and not ours. So when Black said that he would pay for this one, he was talking about the attempt to kill him, and not the drinks. What is it? The Praefectus Praetori called out, answering the knock on his door. Black's gone, sir. A man stuck his head in, went to Switzerland. Thank you, the Praefectus Praetori's face broke into a grin. With any luck he won't come back till after I'm retired. Yes, sir, the man chuckled as he left the office. What was it you were going to say before we were interrupted? The Praefectus Praetori turned back to the team leader that had been sent to help Black. I was going to tell you about Black's knife, sir. The man paused. It was very unusual and I thought that it would be best to tell you about it. Well, it was a Roman-style Pugio with a bone handle. The enchantments were rather old and done in the same way that the Romans commonly used, which leads me to believe that it's not a replica. The blade was made out of an odd bluish metal, and it had a word inscribed on it. What word? Etrum, the team leader swallowed nervously, which can be translated to black according to what I remember from my Latin classes. You're not suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything, sir. I'm just reporting the facts as I have them. As Harry walked the information desk, with a plan began to form on how to spend his first day in Switzerland. He was going to get 5 pounds of Swiss chocolate, a large hotel room, and then he was going to let fate decide what happened next. Good evening, sir. The girl at the information desk smiled when she noticed him approach. What can I do for you today? I need a room, Harry smiled, preferably as large and luxurious as possible. One moment, sir. The girl ducked behind her counter and came out with a pamphlet. Here you are, large, luxurious, and in a convenient location as well. Thank you. Harry turned and walked away, happy that things were beginning to look up. Behind him, the girl at the information desk smirked. She didn't know who had paid her to put a tracking spell on the pamphlet that she had given to the odd man, and she didn't care. After all, she couldn't live her meager salary without supplementing her income. She wouldn't have cared even if she had known of the source of the money. The amount they were offering to anyone that gave them a way to track the man with the unrecognizable face was just too high to pass up. Even if it did mean getting her hands a little dirty. I have some good news, my lord, said a man as he bent to kiss the robes of his disfigured master. A freelancer in Switzerland has managed to plant a tracking charm on Black, and we can track him so long as he has it in his possession. Excellent, the dark figure hissed. Send 15 men to make an example of him. The world needs to learn that the price of defying me. It shall be done, my lord. The pathetic man groveled and began to back out of the room. Would you prefer a room on one of the upper levels or on one of the lower levels, sir? The hotel receptionist asked Harry with a professional smile. I'd like a room as high as possible, Harry smiled. With a balcony if you have it. I like to feel the wind in my hair. Of course, sir. Room 103 on the 10th floor is available, and I am happy to tell you that it has a rather large balcony. The clerk reached under the counter and pulled out a key. Is there anything else we can do for you that would make your stay more pleasant? If it wouldn't be too much trouble, would you mind sending some chocolate up to my room? Harry asked sheepishly. I've heard so much about it and I'm afraid that I never had a chance to try it before now. I'll have some sent up and with luck it will arrive at your room about the same time you do, the clerk replied with a grin. You would be surprised at how many people make that same request when they check in. Thank you, Harry smiled, taking his room key. And have a good night. You as well, Mr. Black, the clerk replied cheerfully. Walking quickly towards one of the elevators, Harry had to resist the urge to shout in joy. He was finally starting the nice quiet vacation that he had planned on. From now on there would be no Death Eater attacks, muggers with knives, Swiss guardsmen asking him to check wards, crazy men bursting into his hotel room, or anything but peace and quiet. 10th floor, Harry instructed the elevator operator. Yes, sir. Harry was bouncing with excitement by the time the elevator doors opened. Thank you, and have a nice day. He called over his shoulder to the elevator operator as he rushed towards his room. Your chocolate, sir, said a smiling young woman with a large tray from beside Harry's door. Would you like anything else? No, thank you, Harry shook his head. Just put the chocolate on the bed and tell me what I owe you. Compliments of the management, sir. The girl placed the tray on the bed. We try to keep the customers in the luxury rooms happy. Thank you, Harry nodded, handing over a small roll of folded bills. And have a good night. You as well, sir. The girl gave one last smile and left the room. Grabbing a piece of chocolate, Harry opened the door to the balcony and leaned on the rail. The wind in his hair, the lights of the city. Could his life get any more perfect? Daddy, Harry watched in shock as several Death Eaters appeared in front of him and then plummeted to their deaths. After taking a suspicious sniff of the piece of chocolate that he had been eating, Harry leaned over the rail to look at the pile of broken Death Eaters littering the ground in front of the hotel. Wondering why these things always happened to him and resisting the urge to cry, Harry turned around and walked sadly back into his hotel room. Local law enforcement would be showing up soon and it might be a good idea to pack. Quiet night, one of the watchers commented to his partner. You think that anything will happen? Nah, everybody is well aware of our neutrality. There is no way that. He trailed off, and the two of them stared blankly at the pile of dead men in black robes that had appeared in front of them. I suspect that now would be a good time to call for backup. I suspect it would, the other agreed. Do you think that Black would refrain from killing anybody else if we asked him nicely? Can't tell a fish to stop swimming, the other shrugged. Do you want to go back to headquarters or go up and interview Black? Flip for it? Sure, the man pulled a coin out of his pocket. Call it in the air. Heads, the two men looked down at the coin. Have fun with Black. Have fun with your report, he replied, as his partner disappeared. Why couldn't he have waited until next shift and saddled them with the paperwork? The man shook his head. Walking slowly towards the hotel, the man racked his brain trying to think of a way that all this could be reported in such a way that nobody would demand the arrest of Mr. Black. Did you see that? The shocked hotel clerk was staring out the window towards the pile of dead Death Eaters. They just fell from the sky. Yes, they did, the man agreed. I'm a cop, don't go outside and don't leave. We'll have someone along to take your statement soon. Okay, the clerk agreed. What room is Mr. Black in? One moment, the shaken hotel clerk checked his records. Room 103. Thank you. The officer got in one of the elevators. 10th floor. The ride up to the 10th floor passed in silence, and after the doors opened, the Swiss cop walked to the door to Harry's room and knocked. I've been expecting you, Harry greeted the man as he opened the door. Would you like to come in, or would you like me to come with you? Hello, Mr. Black. My name is Willimus Peterson. Why don't you tell me what happened on our way to the lobby? The Swiss cop suggested after taking a quick look around the room. One way or another, I'm sure that you're planning to switch hotels anyway. Okay, Harry agreed, shouldering his pack. It was the strangest thing. I was standing on my balcony eating a piece of chocolate and out of nowhere a group of Death Eaters appeared. Then mysteriously fell to their death? Peterson asked with a raised eyebrow. It was the strangest thing, Harry agreed. I don't even know how they were able to find me. Why would Death Eaters be looking for you, Mr. Black? They're always trying to kill me, Harry shrugged. I just assumed that I was the target. I see, Peterson nodded happily. That sounds like it should work. A car will arrive soon to give you a ride to a new hotel. We'll contact you again after we've had a chance to wipe this out of the hotel staff's memories. Okay, Harry shook his head. All I wanted to do in Switzerland was to eat some chocolate and get a new watch. Was that too much to ask for? I don't believe it was Mr. Black, but one can't tell the Death Eaters to stop attacking when one wants. I know, Harry clenched his hands in silent frustration, but I'm supposed to be on vacation, and so far I haven't had a moment's rest. Looks like your car's here, Mr. Black. Peterson pointed to a car parked in front of the hotel. Thanks, Harry shook the man's hand. And have a nice night. You as well, Mr. Black, Peterson replied, then watched Harry enter the car and drive off. Well? Another man walked up. What was his story? He said that he had nothing to do with the pile of dead people. Peterson smirked. To hear him tell it, they just appeared and fell to their deaths without any assistance. Story check out? It did, Peterson chuckled. I looked around the room and the only magical traces that I could detect was a homing spell on a pamphlet. Nothing else? Nope, Peterson grinned. When the French said that he could put up wards without being detected, I was a bit skeptical, but after tonight, explains why they hired him to take a look at the new wards down in Italy. Sure does, Peterson agreed. Why don't we see if we can trace the pamphlet and see if we can pick up whoever tried to plant it on Black before he finds them and arranges another accident? The two men went up to Harry's former hotel room and took a look around. I don't believe it, the second man called out in shock. The pamphlet has a little stamp on the back telling where it comes from. Let me have a look at that. Peterson squinted at the stamp on the back of the pamphlet. I know where he got this. We move in 3, 2, 1. The two men reappeared in front of a very familiar information counter. Can I help you, gentlemen? The attendant asked nervously. I'm only gonna ask this once, Peterson growled. Did you give a pamphlet with a homing charm on it to a man today? I have no idea what you mean, the girl replied innocently. Why do you ask? Okay, if you don't know anything, then I guess the two of us will be going. Peterson shrugged, and I asked because a small pamphlet with a homing spell allowed a large group of Death Eaters to arrive from England to attack a man. How terrible, the girl shook her head. But I still don't understand why you suspected that I might have something to do with this. Well, after Mr. Black, that was their target's name, killed them. My partner and I thought that his next target would be the person that gave him the pamphlet. Peterson shrugged. And the two of us wanted to get a good look at them, so that when the time came we would be able to identify the body. Not that it would help to get a look, the other man added. I've heard that he likes to get messy sometimes, and after seeing what he did to those Death Eaters— You're bluffing, the girl began to sweat nervously. And even if you weren't, I haven't done anything illegal. Such a shame, that is. Peterson shook his head in mock sympathy. I've heard that a nice safe prison cell is the best place to be if Black's after you, and even if he isn't, there's still the Death Eaters to consider. What do you think they will do when they find the person that led them into an ambush? But between the two of us, Black's the one I'd be worried about. The girl paused to think about things, and shuddered at the images that her mind conjured up. I'll talk, I'll give you my list of contacts, I'll confess to everything I've ever done, just keep them away from me. I thought you said you didn't know anything, Peterson asked innocently, and that you didn't do anything wrong. Don't play with me, the girl retorted angrily. This is my life we're talking about. I'd find it a lot easier to be sympathetic if you hadn't set a man up to be murdered. Peterson replied coldly. That sort of thing annoys me. I suggest that you accompany us down to the station, and I suggest that you don't even think about trying to lie to me. Okay, the girl deflated. I already said that I'd tell you everything, just keep me safe. Touch this, Peterson pulled a button off of his shirt. It's a portkey that will take us to HQ. The woman complied and the three of them disappeared. Chief wants to speak with you, Peterson. One of the officers looked up from his desk to address the new arrivals. Who's your prisoner? She helped set up the hit on Black, Peterson replied. And she's still alive? The man looked at the prisoner with undisguised curiosity. I'll take charge of her, you go talk to the chief. Put her in one of the singles when you're done with her, Peterson nodded. And put up a suicide watch. I don't think Black will kill her after I said that we'd protect her. But I'd also think that it would be best to be careful. Got it? Peterson walked across the room to the office belonging to the head of magical law enforcement and chocolate inspection, and gave a polite knock on the door. You wanted to see me? Come in and close the door behind you. The chief looked up from his desk. Looks like we might have to arrest Black over what happened with the Death Eaters. Why? Peterson stared at his boss in shock. They tried to kill him and he defended himself. It's an open and shut case. I agree, the chief nodded. But the British minister has been complaining that we're letting the man who murdered several British citizens walk free, and he demands that we at least have a trial. We do that and the judge would laugh us out of court, Peterson shook his head. There isn't a shred of evidence that we could use against Mr. Black. What do you mean? The chief leaned forward with growing interest. Black set everything up to look like an accident, Peterson smiled. All I can tell from the evidence is that a group of Death Eaters forgot to check the location before they ported in. Nothing directly points at Black doing anything. Then what makes you think that it wasn't an accident? Peterson glared at his boss. I've been investigating murders since before you started your first year of school, and I've never seen something like this. I'm not saying that you're wrong, the chief held up his hand. I've already decided to tell the Brits that it was all a big accident, and that a large group of men, some of whom large contributors to the Re-elect Fudge campaign, had the bad taste to try pretending to be Death Eaters as some sort of prank, because we know that me, as influential and rich as they were, would never support the dark thingy, all died in a tragic accident that Mr. Black had nothing to do with. I just want to know where Black slipped up. He didn't, Peterson replied with a laugh. Sorry about criticizing you, Hans, but I thought that all this time in the office might have turned you dumb. Black asked for a room on one of the top floors with a balcony, and just happened to be standing on it when they ported in. We know from the French that he can put up undetectable wards, and I suspect that he warded his hotel room and then walked out onto the balcony to watch the fun. Anything else? The chief grinned. He was eating chocolates to pass the time waiting for them to appear, and he's thrown people off of buildings in the past, Peterson shrugged. There is no way that the sequence of events leading up to this could be random. Thanks, Willie, the chief chuckled, and thank Black for making things so easy if you get a chance. I've got to call the British and tell them about this tragic accident. Have fun with that, Hans, Peterson chuckled. And why don't you meet up with the rest of us for a few drinks, if that idiot Fudge doesn't take too much of your time? I'll try, Willie, the chief nodded. And don't look so smug. It's your fault I have this damn job. Not my fault that I was smart enough to turn it down and you weren't. Scene break. Harry awoke late the next morning and stretched. Walking to the balcony of his new room, he looked over the edge to ensure that a new group of Death Eaters hadn't ported in and fallen to their deaths while he was sleeping. Harry smiled when he saw clean pavement without any bloodstains. Dressing quickly and shouldering his pack, he left his room and went downstairs for breakfast. Good morning, Mr. Black. A man greeted him as he stepped off the elevator. Good morning, Mr. Peterson, Harry nodded to the Swiss law enforcement officer. Do you need me to answer any questions for your report? No, Peterson shook his head. All the evidence points to it simply being a tragic accident that you had no control over, and as such, all we need is the quick statement you gave last night. Thank you. No thank you, Mr. Black, Peterson smiled. I came here to do a favor for some of my countrymen in Italy. They wanted me to take you to meet the gnomes so that they could brief you on your new account. That was nice of them, Harry smiled. Lead the way. Would you prefer a magical or non-magical form of transportation? None, Harry smiled. After seeing that accident last night, I'd rather take it safe for a few days. I'll call a car, Peterson nodded, raised his hand to call the car. How are you enjoying your trip to Switzerland? From what I've seen, it's a nice country, Harry shrugged. After this, I guess I'll get a new watch and head to Germany. Leaving so soon? Peterson asked as they entered the car. No offense, but I'd rather not stay around after witnessing what happened last night. Harry resisted the urge to frown. After the appearance of the Death Eaters, the order was sure to follow. I just want a quiet vacation, and Switzerland is getting a bit too exciting. I understand, Peterson resisted the urge to laugh. Black had a great sense of humor. Where are you planning to go next? Germany, Harry smiled. After that, who knows? I hear that Berlin is nice this time of year, Peterson remarked, and Munich is also supposed to be a good place to see. Thanks, Harry nodded. I don't have any plans yet, but it's nice to get ideas. Glad I could be of help, Peterson looked around as the car stopped. It looks like we've arrived. The two of them exited the car and Peterson led Harry through an impressive set of doors, past the main floor and to a door marked private. Just go in and tell them who you are, Peterson nodded towards the door. I've got to get back to work. Have a nice day, Mr. Black. You as well, Harry nodded back and knocked on the door. Yes? A short man with a large pair of glasses answered the door. My name is Mr. Black. Harry looked down at the man. And I was told that I was supposed to have a meeting with the gnomes? Right this way, the man replied briskly and opened the door wider to allow Harry to enter. I don't want to sound foolish, Harry began, but why is a bank being run by gnomes and not goblins? It's not being run by gnomes, Mr. Black, the man replied evenly. That's just a nickname used by some of the more ignorant members of society for the bankers here. As for why this bank is run by humans and not goblins. The man paused. We've never been forced to allow a monopoly to stop a war. Oh, Harry thought about things for a few minutes. Thank you for the information, and sorry about calling you a gnome. That's quite all right, Mr. Black, the small man replied with a bit of warmth. So long as it wasn't a deliberate insult, I see no reason to take offense. So how does the bank here work? Harry asked curiously. The same as a non-magical bank would, the small man replied. We are currently in the magical section. You entered through the non-magical section. We see no reason to limit our customer base, and our accounts can be accessed by both magical and non-magical methods. That's useful, Harry nodded. What are we going to discuss in our meeting? It might be best to wait until we reach the privacy of my office before we talk about that, the small man replied. I do not mean to say that the bank is unsafe, but it's best not to take chances, Harry agreed. I understand. It's a sensible policy. I'm glad you think so, the small man nodded, opening a door. After you. Thank you, Harry nodded, walking into the room and taking a seat. First, let's get your account balance. The man pulled a small piece of paper out of his desk. It will display your current balance, broken down into subsections of how much of what type of currency with a total in CHF at the end. CHF? Confederation Helvetica Francs, the banker smiled. After that I have a small message that I'm to relay to you from several casinos in Monte Carlo. Thank you, Harry replied, taking the paper. Is this correct? Down to the last decimal point, the banker nodded. The casinos wish to thank you for your efforts on their behalf and the trust you showed by not immediately accepting your winning, and as a small gesture of appreciation they have awarded you a small percentage of stock. How much? About 1/5 of 1% of all the casinos in Monte Carlo, the banker shrugged. It's not much, but it does provide a small income. The banker carefully avoided mentioning that the deal would benefit the casinos immensely. After all, who would try to cheat a place that they knew was partially owned by the infamous Mr. Black? Anything else? Harry asked quietly, still stunned by the amount of money in his new account. Not unless you have some questions for me, Mr. Black. The banker shook his head. Not right now, Harry blinked, and looked at the figure written on the piece of paper again. I guess I'll be going then. I'll show you to the door, the banker smiled. It has been a pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Black. The pleasure was all mine, Harry smiled. Thank you for taking the time to see me. This way, Mr. Black, the banker led Harry through an array of hallways before reaching an exit. This is one of the more discreet exits into one of the magical sections of town. Thank you, Harry nodded, stepping onto the street. And have a nice day. You as well, Mr. Black. The banker closed the door. Walking down the street, Harry glanced at the window displays in front of the shops and stopped in front of one containing an array of timepieces. Entering the store, Harry looked around and found a man with a strange device on his head stooped over a small table. I'll be with you in a moment. The man didn't look up. I just want to get this last piece in before I stand up. Take your time, Harry nodded. I'm not in any hurry. The man spent several seconds tinkering with something on the table and then stood, removing the strange device on his head. Sorry about that. I was in the middle of something delicate and I couldn't stop in the middle of it. No problem, Harry nodded. I've come here because I noticed your display and I'd like to take a look at the most durable watch you have. Know what you want, huh? The man smiled and grabbed a solid gold jewel-encrusted watch out of the display cabinet. This one is as accurate as we can make it. The button on the side here will change it from local time to Greenwich Mean Time to any number of times that you select. It's also indestructible. Sounds like just what I had in mind. Only, Harry paused, do you have something like it that isn't so gaudy? Of course, the man nodded, replacing the watch in its display and pulling out another watch. This watch has the same characteristics, but it is a bit less gaudy. I'll take it, Harry smiled, purchasing the watch and putting the plain silver object on his wrist. Do you know where I could arrange transportation to Berlin? Store up the street and to your right, the man nodded. Called Adventure Travel. You can't miss it. Thank you. Harry left the store and entered Adventure Travel. What can I do for you? The woman in the shop looked up from her desk. Port key to Berlin if you have one ready, Harry replied absently as he examined one of the pictures on the wall of the travel agency. One moment, the woman opened a cabinet and removed a small circular object. Anything else? No, that will be all. Then that will be 25 francs, the woman replied. The word to activate your port key is Berlin. Have a good day. You too, Harry nodded. Berlin. Good afternoon, sir. A smiling customs agent greeted Harry upon his appearance. How did you like the weather in Switzerland? It was okay, Harry shrugged, digging for his passport. How's the weather in Germany? It's good, sir, the customs agent nodded. Very nice at the moment. What is the purpose of your visit? I'm on vacation, Harry handed the man his passport. I want to get a look at some of the museums and monuments, and I want to sample some of your famous beers. Everything seems to be in order, Mr. Black. The customs agent stamped the passport and handed it back. I hope you have a nice quiet time in Germany. So do I, Harry smiled. And thank you. Harry walked out and hailed a cab, unaware as always of the panicking law enforcement officers that he left in his wake. There was a sense of excitement in the air, and half the buildings of the city seemed to be under construction or renovation. Harry smiled as he wandered through the city, marveling at the surprisingly large number of buildings that still carried battle scars from the last war. Harry spent the entire day gazing at the wonders of Berlin until he finally wandered into a posh-looking hotel with a smile on his tired face. It had been a great day, and he was finally leaving all the strangeness behind. "May I help you, sir?" a girl asked from behind the check-in counter. "I'd like a room if you have one to spare." Harry nodded. "The most comfortable one you have available." "Yes, sir." The girl pulled a key off the rack. "I'm putting you in room 406. Will you be requiring anything else?" "No, thank you." Harry took the key. Thank you, sir." Harry went up to his room with a smile and tossed his pack on the bed. Walking over to the windows, he threw open the curtains and paused. Maybe it would be best to leave them closed. While it wouldn't stop people from appearing outside and then falling to their doom, closing the drapes would make it easier to pretend that he didn't notice anything. Harry woke up late the next day, and after checking his notes realized that he was supposed to meet with the professor and henchgirl later in the day. Walking down to the hotel lobby, Harry stopped at a small information kiosk to get a bit of information on Berlin. "May I help you, sir?" "I've got a few hours to kill," Harry smiled, "and I was wondering if you had any suggestions on places to visit." "The Slytherin Museum is always popular." The girl behind the hotel's information counter smiled and began pulling out pamphlets. "There are also a few other places that shouldn't be missed." "Thank you." Harry nodded, taking the informative pieces of paper. "And have a nice day." Harry's pulse quickened as he read the description of the Slytherin Museum. He had come to Berlin with the express purpose of looking into the history of the Soviet occupation, and now he had his chance. His interest in the wall was because it represented one of his very few happy childhood memories. Harry had been young when the wall collapsed, but he still remembered the look of elation worn by the reporter that broke the story. A look that told the world that evil had been forced back, if only for a while, a look that spoke of all being right in the world. His uncle had just stared at the television in shock, not believing what the reporter had just said. Unfortunately, Vernon had then noticed that the worthless boy was watching television, and then things had gotten a bit less pleasant. Despite that, watching as crowds of people tore down the scar running across Berlin was still one of the happiest moments of his life. Harry froze after taking his first step into the museum. The air around him was buzzing with magic, and his head whipped back and forth to find its source. "May I?" The greeter paused. "You'll be wanting to go into the door to your front. Have a nice day." "Okay," Harry nodded, fingering his concealed wand. "I'll just be going in then." "You do that," the greeter agreed. Harry approached the door slowly, his instincts screaming at him to turn and run, and his curiosity urging him to go forward. Slowly, carefully, he reached towards the knob with his left hand and turned it, easing the door back. Harry quickly stepped in and to the left. "Hello?" An older woman looked up from her magazine. "Are you here for the tour?" "Yes," Harry shrugged. "I guess so." "One moment then." The woman stowed her magazine and pulled out a clipboard. "Sorry about that. I get so few visitors that I wasn't expecting you." "That's all right," Harry nodded, and allowed his muscles to relax. "What's the first thing on the tour?" "The first thing on the tour is," the woman glanced down at her clipboard, "a section of the wall that still has the original wards intact." "I wasn't aware that there were any wards," Harry blinked in surprise. "Not many people know that some of the wards were preserved, sir." The woman nodded, misunderstanding Harry's statement. "But we managed to stabilize the wards on our section before they unraveled." "Oh," Harry shrugged. "Do you have a diagram available?" I'm afraid not, sir, the woman reddened. You see, we ran out of toilet paper last week and, well, since nobody ever comes here— It's all right, Harry interrupted, not wanting to hear any more of the explanation. I don't need a diagram, I just wanted to look at the plans before I took a look at the wards. Oh, the woman nodded. Right this way? The two of them walked through a door and entered a room that had an entire wall filled by a large graffiti-covered chunk of cement. Were they effective? Harry asked, taking a doubtful glance at the section of wall that contained the last shred of the communist wards. Maybe I'm missing something, but this ward looks like it was put up by a first year. No, the woman shook her head. Most of Russia's magical talent fought with the whites. When the Bolsheviks took the country, most of the magical talent went elsewhere. What they did have was quantity. The Reds did have a small number of Muggle-borns, and over the years they were used to train any new Muggle-borns that didn't get rescued by one of the schools. Training wasn't too good, I take it. I'm told that they spent more time learning to be politically reliable than they did learning magic. The woman shrugged, but there was an old saying during the Cold War. It's quality versus quantity, but quantity has a quality all its own. Fascinating. I think so, the woman agreed. Now this next section, Harry spent almost 2 hours exploring the magical section of the museum, spending his time alternately shaking his head in disgust and rubbing his chin in interest. And here we are at the end of our tour, the woman smiled nervously. Would you care to get something in our gift shop? Do you have anything good? Harry asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, the woman managed a weak chuckle. You could get a piece of the wall and an old Soviet spell book. Is the book any good? Harry asked quietly. Not really, the woman shrugged helplessly. Most of the defensive spells are next to useless. But the attack spells are fairly good, so long as you don't need precision. If you don't need precision, then the attack spells are some of the most effective in the world. In what way? They were designed to be used by poorly educated conscripts, the woman smiled. It is very difficult to mess up their casting, and if you buy now, I'll even throw in a book of spells used by one of the more secretive organizations. Fine, Harry nodded, pulling out his wallet. I guess I can't pass up an offer like that. Here you are, sir. The woman passed over a bag containing Harry's purchases. Do you need anything else? One thing, Harry nodded. Could you direct me to the Welt restaurant, Marktho? No problem, the woman nodded, flipping through a book on her desk. The address is Pewklastrasse 34 Kreuzberg, T97. If you're taking a cab, just tell the driver to take you to Eisenbahnmarkthalle. It's connected to the restaurant. Thanks, Harry nodded. Have a good day. One more thing, the woman bit her lower lip. If you're going to eat there, try the Königsberger Klops, it's one of my favorites. I'll keep that in mind, Harry laughed. Have a good day. Harry exited the building and called a cab. Where to? The driver asked, not bothering to turn. Oh, Eisenbahnmarkthalle, Harry replied quickly. I've got a meeting with a friend of mine. You got it? The cab driver nodded. Mind if I ask what you're planning on doing in Berlin? Just meeting some friends and having a look around, Harry smiled, thinking about his moment of fleeting childhood happiness. Just wanted to take a look at where the wall used to be. Must be strange for you to see the city without the wall in it. It was there for so long. Harry gave a sad smile. Seeing it fall is one of the happiest memories of my life. I'll bet, the driver smirked. You gonna visit the Brandenburg Gate? I don't know, Harry shrugged his shoulders. Might go through it while I'm here, but I think that it might be strange to see it without the border guards. I'll bet, the driver muttered. What was that? Harry asked. We'll be there shortly. Oh, Harry nodded. Thank you. The cab stopped in front of the Eisenbahnmarkthalle, and Harry stepped out onto the curb. Mr. Black, it's so good to see you again. A short gnomish man and his henchgirl walked up. Hello, henchgirl waved. Hello, Professor Henchgirl. Harry smiled to his two friends. How are you doing? Very well. The short man beamed up at his dangerous friend. I trust that you've had nothing untoward happen to you since our last visit. It's been a series of unfortunate events, Harry sighed. For some reason, odd things keep happening to me. Well, the professor paused for a moment, unsure of how to reply. You can tell us about it later. Would you care to dine with us? Sure, Harry nodded. It's good to see the two of you again. You as well, the professor replied, and Henchgirl nodded her agreement. We have the city item that you requested, along with a few other things that may pique your interest. We can deal with that later. Harry put a hand on each of his friend's shoulders, and with a sad smile said, For now, why don't we just have a nice meal together and talk about happy things? The two inventors agreed, each wondering what demons were haunting their friend, and each silently vowing to do what they could to ease his torment. Well, Black was very cooperative, the cab driver smiled. He told me that he doesn't plan to kill anybody in Berlin, just visit with some friends and see the sights. Anything else? He talked about the Cold War, said it was strange seeing the city without the wall. The driver laughed, said that watching it fall was one of the happiest memories of his life, probably because of all the time he spent in the Soviet sector trying to bring it down. I'm sure, the other officer nodded. Anything else? I talked to the woman in the museum. She said that Black mostly just came in and stared at the section of wards, then muttered something about how shoddy the Eastern Bloc's defensive magic was, said that their offensive magic was fairly good if you weren't looking for subtlety, but that their defensive magic sucked. The cab driver chuckled, said that any first-year student with a bit of magical instruction wouldn't have a problem making a hole in the first few layers of wards. I suppose that he'd know better than anybody. The older officer shook his head. The things he must have seen. That's not all, the cab driver smiled. When I was at the museum, I glanced at one of the photos showing the wall being torn down. And I noticed that one of the men tearing down the wall in the photo had a blurred face. The cab driver had an I know something you don't know smile. So the photographer wasn't very skilled, so what? The men around him had recognizable faces, only his was blurred. The cab driver smirked. That's not all. I took a look at one of the other pictures showing life behind the wall, and I saw another picture with a blurred face. And this one was walking out of Stacy headquarters during the final days. The cab driver held up his hand. The same day that someone used a little magic to disable their paper shredders. That's very interesting, but it doesn't prove anything. I never said it did, the cab driver smiled. It's not the sort of thing for official reports, but I'm sure that if we can find a few more of these coincidences, then we won't have to buy our own beer for weeks. Just drop us off here, Harry told the driver as they neared his hotel. It's only about 100 meters from here, and we can walk the rest of the way. You got it? The driver nodded. Have a good day. You too, Harry replied as he and his companions got out of the car. Do either of you need any help with your bags? No thank you, the professor shook his head. Both Henchgirl and I are stronger than we look. All right then, Harry shrugged his shoulders. Was there some reason you wanted to wait until we got to my room before we looked at the things you wanted to show me? I don't want the people watching us to know about what we've been able to develop with your assistance. The professor glanced around nervously and several unseen watchers stepped back into deeper shadows. Besides, our hotel doesn't have room service. Okay, Harry nodded, holding the door open for his two friends. We can wait. They spent the trip to Harry's room in silence, and when they entered, the professor held up his hand. Would you mind putting up a privacy charm or two? I'd really rather not take the chance that anyone is listening in. One moment, Harry pulled out one of his new books and began flipping through it, then paused to study a page for a few moments. Absconditus, Horatio. The professor looked around for a moment. What kind of spell was that? It was a spell that was used by one of the old Soviet organizations. Harry flicked his wand to put up a few more charms. I haven't used it before, and it doesn't hurt to be redundant. No, it doesn't, Mr. Black, the professor agreed, putting up a few spells of his own. I have your new wand here. The professor pulled out a small box. Take a look and tell me what you think. Harry removed the lid from the box and spent several moments gazing at the wand. It's so short. Yes, it is, the professor agreed. Gives a bit more control on the wand movements. It also makes concealment much easier. Harry pulled it out and gave it an experimental wave. The handle feels a bit strange, and I'm not feeling any sort of magical connection. The handle's been designed to make it easier to retain in a fight, and you're not feeling a connection because we haven't connected it to you yet. The professor smiled. The handle contains a small plug of a magically reactive metal that can be calibrated to react to specific magical signatures. When in the presence of the correct magical field, the plug slides out of the way and allows a connection to the user's magical core. Without the correct magical signature, it physically blocks any connection. What if I were to grip it in front of the handle? Harry asked with a raised eyebrow. And what's this thing made out of? If you gripped it in front of the handle, then you might be able to cast spells, but I don't believe it would be very effective. The professor smiled. I borrowed a bit of technology from the Muggles to make the body of the wand and used a substance called carbon fiber. As you suggested, I also checked up on ministry regulations. Your wand is untraceable and nearly undetectable. I hope that it meets your expectations. It does, Harry nodded. You mentioned that you had a few other things you wanted to show me. Well, Hench Girl would be the one to ask about that. Hench Girl? We weren't trying to do anything that would annoy you, but since you left France, Hench Girl smiled nervously. Well, we've had a lot of requests from various law enforcement agencies on getting access to you flu-tapping abilities. And we were wondering if we could get a look at it. I don't have the ability to tap flu. Harry looked at his companions with an odd expression. Why would they think I could? Of course you don't, Hench Girl nodded, but we were doing some research, and I think we might have found a way to do it. Really? Harry raised his eyebrow. Tell me more. It's just a theory, really, the professor interrupted, and I'd rather wait until we have a chance to test it before we explain it in depth. If you like, Harry nodded. It's still just a theory, Hench Girl agreed. But while we were working on it, we came up with this. She pulled out another small box. We were able to miniaturize a connection to the flu network. But it's worthless. The professor re-entered the conversation. It's too small to put anything through it and we can't get much of an image. Can you still use it to communicate? Harry asked. Because if you could, then you've invented something rather useful. But it doesn't do nearly the amount of things a flu should. The professor frowned. We were hoping you could tell us how to improve it so it would be useful. Make it portable, Harry shrugged. It will always be useful to have a portable way of communicating with people. I imagine that it could also be very profitable. We never thought about that, Hench Girl admitted sheepishly. We were just rather frustrated that we couldn't figure out how to engineer it so that it would do everything that a normal flu can do. Anything else? Harry resisted the urge to laugh. I don't suppose you'd be willing to help us create undetectable wards? The professor asked with a hopeful expression. I'd really like to know how to make undetectable wards. Sure, Harry nodded. I could help you figure out how to change the colors. After that, I don't think I can help you much. Colors? Yeah, Harry shrugged. Make them show the same colors as their background or have them in one of the non-visible colors or something. Thank you, Mr. Black, we shall. The professor's hands were shaking in eagerness. Now, did you have any new ideas on items that would be useful? I did get stabbed in Marseille. Harry rubbed his newest scar. I was wondering if you could develop some sort of armor that I could wear under my normal clothes. Well, the professor rubbed his chin. We've got just the thing. Steel silk. Steel silk? We developed it after hearing about a Muggle substance called steel wool, Hench Girl replied. We figured that if the Muggles could make something, then we could improve it. It's as soft and smooth as silk, but many times stronger, and it can't be cut like normal silk. Wearing it would provide protection from any sort of blade and quite a few spells. That could work, thanks. Harry nodded enthusiastically. By the way, why did the two of you come to Germany? To build a Zeppelin, of course, the professor replied, and Hench Girl nodded in agreement. Why? Harry asked, and immediately regretted it. Where else would we build a Zeppelin but Germany? Hench Girl replied as if it were obvious. I suppose that we could have built one somewhere else, but it wouldn't have had the same Zeppelin-building atmosphere that Germany does. I'll be damned, one of the watchers commented to his partner. I haven't seen that charm for a while. What charm? The other watcher asked, with a raised eyebrow. Never did find out the name to it. The first watcher shrugged. It's a charm that was extensively used by Soviet state security to keep their meetings from being overheard. It is very effective and almost undetectable. Then how did you spot it so fast? I said almost. The first watcher chuckled. Once you know what to look for, it stands out like a miniature sun. Anyone that was working before the wall fell could spot it. Then why did Black put it up? Why wouldn't he? The first watcher shrugged. He's not trying to hide from us, and as I said before, it is a very effective spell. Oh, the younger watcher nodded. Where do you think I could learn it? You can't, the older man smiled. The Russians still consider it a secret despite its drawbacks and the fact that the Cold War ended. Then where did Black learn it? The younger man reddened when he noticed the expression on his partner's face. Right, he probably walked into Lubyanka and took it out from everybody's noses. Or he got it from a defector, or he learned it in an interrogation, or who knows. The older man shrugged his shoulders. But I think that your story is the better one to repeat after work. The fact that he used that spell really only tells us one useful thing. What's that? It confirms that he was one of the heavy hitters during the Cold War. The older man smirked. Nobody else would know one of their spells. Oh, the younger man nodded. Should we report this? Report the fact that he used the spell and answer any questions they have, the older man nodded. And then come right back. Yes, sir. The younger man disappeared with a pop and reappeared in a busy office. What do you need? One of the men looked up from behind his desk to regard the new arrival. I was told to report that Mr. Black used an old Soviet spell, the young man replied. My partner said that it was the one that was easy to spot when you knew what to look for, but that it was still effective. I see, the man nodded. Was Black alone? He was in the company of two other individuals, a male and a female. Were you able to identify them? No, the young man shook his head. Black used code names when he talked to them. I see, the man nodded. You had better get back to your post. Yes, sir, the young man disappeared with a pop. Harry awoke late the next morning and was surprised to find his two guests awake. Good morning, how was your night? Night? A confused professor lifted his head. Hench Girl and I were unable to go to sleep without solving the problem you gave us on making a portable flue. Oh. Harry walked over to the room's phone and ordered breakfast. Did you do it? Well, it took us all night, but here it is. A bleary-eyed hench girl handed a small package to Mr. Black. We had to cut some corners to get it done so soon. What do you think? It looks okay so far. Harry turned the small object over in his hands. Why does it have Zippo written on it? Because those lighters already have everything we could want. They are lightweight, they have a built-in ignition system, they are small and portable. The professor was struggling to stay awake, and we were able to find it for sale in the hotel shop downstairs. I'm afraid we had to charge it to your room. No problem, Harry shrugged his shoulders. How does it work? For outgoing communications, open it up and spin the little wheel that will cause a small measure of flue powder to go into the flame. For incoming communications, it vibrates to indicate that someone is attempting to call you. The professor blinked his eyes. Hench Girl thought that it might be a bad thing if it were to suddenly make strange noises at odd times. She was right, Harry nodded. Does it use standard flue powder or does it need some sort of special flue powder? Doesn't need flue powder. Hench Girl smiled proudly. We managed to enchant it to transfigure the flint into flue powder, and we also managed to enchant the flint and fuel supply to be never-ending. Very nice. Harry rubbed his new toy appreciatively. Could you change it to only use a special kind of flute powder? Child's play, the professor replied. But why would we want to do that? Well, Harry started slowly. It seems to me that this little device will become quite popular in the future, and if it needs a special flue powder, then I imagine that the potential profit would be enormous. The professor and henchgirl shared a look. Profit? Yes, Harry nodded. You could make quite a bit of money with this little gadget. Money? Henchgirl was astounded by the possibilities. Just think of all the inventions we could make if we had funding. Thank you, Mr. Black, the professor smiled. Now if you will excuse us, it's time for Henchgirl and I to go to bed. Use mine, Harry motioned towards the closed bedroom door. If you're willing to wait a few minutes, breakfast will arrive and I'll have them change the sheets while you eat. Thank you, Henchgirl smiled. But won't we be disturbing you? No, Harry shook his head. I'm going to be out most of the day. Where are you planning to go? Henchgirl asked with a smile. Harry's face lost all emotion. Got you. Oh, Henchgirl's smile disappeared. I'll see you two later. Harry stood up and walked toward the door. I'm sure that I'll have some more ideas for you later. Yes, the professor agreed sadly. Later. Harry walked out of his room and out of his hotel, and soon found himself in the magical section of town. Excuse me, Harry asked a passerby. Could you direct me to a travel agency or some other place where I could get an internal portkey? Right behind you, the man replied nervously. Thank you. Harry turned and walked into the shop. How may I? The shopkeep trailed off when he saw the expression on his customer's face. What can I do for you? I need a portkey to date you and back. Harry's voice showed no emotion. How much? 50 marks, the man replied nervously. Will that be all? Yes, Harry agreed coldly. That will be all. Here you are then, sir. The man handed over a short length of chain. It will activate in a few seconds. To return, just say Berlin. Thank you. Harry took the portkey and disappeared. Harry spent an indefinite amount of time just wandering around the camp, staring with morbid horror at the crematoriums and gas chambers. Finally, he found himself standing in front of the doors to the furnace in the northwest corner of the camp, staring dully at the manufacturer's name, Toff and Son. One by one, the camp's ghosts, their eyes still showing the pain of their last moments, surrounded him. Harry looked into their eyes and fell to his knees. Taking several short breaths to keep his stomach under control, all around stood the victims of the camp watching him. I won't, Harry's lower lip quivered. I won't let this happen again. I swear to you that I won't fail again. Well, he spent the entire day at the camp, sir, the young officer nervously replied. Earlier today he muttered something about not failing again and never allowing it to happen again. Other than that, he hasn't made a sound. Show him what we found, the chief of magical law enforcement ordered, and ask for his help. Sir? He made a vow, the older man replied, rubbing a spot on his forearm. We can't do anything. Yes, sir, the young man agreed. Do you really think he can help us? No, I don't think he can help us solve this case. The old man shook his head. I think he'll fulfill his vow, and heaven help those poor bastards when he finds them. I understand, sir, the officer nodded. Do you want me to take anyone with me? I'll ask Grenschutz 9 if they can spare a few men, the old man sighed. Have them shadow you to provide any assistance you might require. Yes, sir, the young man agreed, and turned towards the door. And Hans, the old man worked his jaw. Be careful, it would kill your mother if anything happened to you. Yes, Papa, I will be careful. The young man agreed without turning around. Goodbye, Papa, I promise that I will make you proud of me. You already have. Hans walked slowly towards the section of the building where the wards were thin enough to allow magical travel and then disappeared with a pop. Mr. Black? Hans approached slowly. My name is Hans Ritter. I'm with the Bundesamt für Magie. Harry turned to stare at the man who had interrupted his contemplation. What can I do for you? We were wondering if you would be willing to help us with a case. Hans held out a folder. We've hit a dead end and we were hoping that you would be willing to use your brawny, unique insights to help us solve things. I am always willing to help competent law enforcement. Harry opened the folder. What's the case? A young Muggle-born girl was found murdered last week, Officer Ritter began. She was supposed to attend one of our magical schools later this year, and we believe that she was killed to prevent that. What about her family? Harry turned a page in the file and froze, unable to take his eyes off of the photo of the young victim. They were also killed, Hans replied nervously. We have a few ideas about which group might have done it, but we have no suspects at this time. Harry stared at the picture. He saw a small girl with a pretty smile. He saw a bushy-haired girl that would never help her friends with homework. He saw a girl with overly large front teeth whose parents wouldn't let her fix them with magic. He saw red. Where is the nearest bar that your suspect groups like to gather? Harry asked without emotion. There's a bar named Blot, Hans nervously replied. I want you to know that most Germans aren't like this. Most of us find this as disgusting as you do. I know, Harry's voice showed no emotion. Take me to Blot. Yes, sir, Hans agreed. If you'll just touch this bottle cap. The two men reappeared in front of a disreputable-looking building. Is this the place? It is Mr. Black, Ritter agreed, but I don't think that anybody will be in for a few hours. Wait here. Harry walked toward the door. Reducto. You have a warrant. A slimy-looking man sneered from behind the bar. If not, then I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Shut up. Harry drew his new wand and hit the wall behind the man with a blasting curse. There were some murders committed. A little girl and her family were killed because she was magical. So, the man replied nervously, one less mud blood. Harry walked towards the man and placed the tip of his wand on the man's kneecap. I suggest you tell me who did it and where I can find them. You can't do this, the man was shaking. There are laws that say you can't do this. There are also laws that say you can't go around killing little girls and their families, Harry retorted. And it offends me when people break them. Now answer the questions. I don't know anything, the bartender protested. Nobody said anything. The kind of people that I'm looking for wouldn't be smart enough to keep their mouths shut. Harry's face looked as if it could have been carved from stone. Reduce. Wait, the man screamed. Wait, I'll tell you everything. Yes, Harry agreed, you will. Hans was pacing nervously when Harry stepped out of the ruined bar. Well, do you know where Tierparkstrasse is? Harry asked, ignoring the man's questioning look. Yes, I do, Hans nodded. Why? Take me there. All right, Ritter nodded, pulling out another portkey. The two men felt a pull from behind their navels and appeared in front of a large house. Do you have any information about one of your suspected groups being in this area? Yes, we do, Ritter nodded. Are they who you're looking for? Ignoring the man, Harry walked towards another house down the street. Knocking on the house's door, Harry waited calmly for one of the house's inhabitants to answer the door. What do you want? A dirty man answered the door. Are you a member of a group that believes in pure blood nonsense? Harry asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes, I am, the man sneered. Did you kill a young girl and her family to prevent her from getting a magical education? You a cop? The man grinned. You trying to get me to confess? No, Harry shook his head. I just wanted to make sure I got the right people, Reductor. Harry stepped over the body and into house. Is there anybody here who doesn't believe in a racist ideology? A dozen shocked men reached for their wands. I thought not, Reductor. Edoro, Repom. Nobody move. Several men in black ran into the room. Mr. Black, would you please lower your wand? The men watched nervously as Harry considered the question. Of course I will. Do you need anything else or can I go? You can go, the man nodded. Thank you for the help. Harry took out the length of chain that he had been given earlier that day. Berlin. What a mess. The man shook his head looking around. He really doesn't believe in subtlety, does he? He normally does, Ritter shook his head at the mess. Most of his kills looked like accidents or coincidences. I guess he didn't feel like making the effort today. What do you think set him off? Ritter paused, remembering his conversation with the enigmatic Mr. Black. The child, Black, was angry about what they did to the child, and his control slipped. Makes sense. The other man nodded. Better call the coroner and tell him to bring a mop. I'm going back to the office. Ritter held a hand in front of his nose to block out some of the smell. Can your men keep watch here? Sure, the other man nodded. Take your time. I'll be back as soon as I can. Ritter took one last look at the horrifying scene and disappeared. You know, the man addressed his team in a low voice. I think it's a shame that there weren't more of them here when Black arrived. The men looked at him with expressionless faces. On the other hand, he doesn't seem like the sort to stop here. He gestured towards the scene of carnage. I'm willing to bet that we're going to find quite a few more of these in the future. I'm also willing to bet that if something like this happened again in the near future, that it would be blamed on Mr. Black. Harry returned to his hotel room and immediately started packing. Is there something wrong? The professor asked nervously. What happened? I'm going to leave here. Harry's eyes were blank. Then I don't know what I'm going to do. What happened? The professor repeated. Group of Death Eater wannabes killed a little girl. Harry paused. I killed them. I see. The professor nodded. Why don't you come stay with us for a little while? Stay with you? Yes. The professor nodded. You could see the Zeppelin, and we could all talk about new inventions and forget that today ever happened. Harry nodded. All right, I'll create a portkey. The professor grabbed one of the free hotel pens. You get hench girl. Mr. Black is in Germany, sir. A large, dirty man addressed a shadowed figure. What do you want us to do? See about contacting him, the shadowed figure replied. See if he's willing to give us the same deal he gave to the Italians. That might not be a good idea, sir, the man licked his lips nervously. Black's not in a very good mood right now. What happened? A group of blood purists killed a child, the large man replied. Black killed several, but not all of them, and I don't think he would be very happy to see anybody right now. I see, told the men. The shadowed figure paused. Tell them that it's open season on blood purists. The sooner they're gone, the sooner Black will leave the country. Do you still want to obey Black's rules? What did he do to the purists? The shadowed figure asked with a raised eyebrow. I'm told that the coroner is going to have to spend most of the next week trying to figure out what parts belong to who, the large man replied. And several of the cops are saying that we're in the calm before the storm. They say that Black's about to go on a rampage. Follow Black's rules, the shadowed figure nodded, and start dealing with the purists. The sooner they're gone, the sooner Black will leave. Yes, sir? Luna, latest Lovegood, called his only daughter. I have another assignment for you. What is it, father? The spacey young girl walked in. Do you want me to go to Germany? No, I'll cover that. There was no way in hell that he was going to send his daughter to Germany with what had been happening there for the last few days. I have something more important for you to report on. What? Luna blinked curiously. Did we finally get proof that the Malfoy family was descended from house elves? Not yet. Lettice frowned. The ministry still won't let me have one of them for testing. Oh, Luna's shoulders dropped in disappointment. That's too bad. What do you have for me then? I want you to go to Holland and get some more information on the Snorlax. Okay, father, Luna nodded. I hope you don't get too bored writing a story about all those murders in Germany. I hope so too, dear, Lalith nodded. But someone has to do it, and since you have the good article, I'm stuck with the boring one. Luna walked over to the fire, tossed in a handful of fluid and shouted out her destination. Then she squealed in happiness as she felt herself get thrown around on her way to her destination. Welcome to Holland, a bored-looking man greeted her upon her arrival. How may I help you? I'm supposed to meet with someone from the Department of Magical Creatures to get information on an article for the Quibbler. Luna smiled brightly. Oh yes, the man nodded, checking his list. We've been expecting you. Really? Luna asked delightedly. Have I been declared an enemy of the state? Are you going to put me in your secret prison on the moon? Huh? The customs agent shot her an odd look. Hey Doc, your reporter is here. Good afternoon, Ms. Lovegood, the man identified as Doc walked up. I'm Dr. Wim Cornelissen. I understand that you have some questions to ask me. Yes, I do, Luna nodded. Why hasn't anyone been able to get information on the existence of Snorlax before? We've discovered that the males put out a natural wizard-repelling charm which has until now kept them from being noticed. What about the females? Snorlax like to den in large hills, and the females rarely leave the nesting sites. The doctor smiled. And they also emit a natural muggle-repelling charm. We believe that this is why muggles think that Holland is a flat country. Because there are Snorlax living in all the hills? Luna asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes, the doctor replied with a laugh. Fascinating, isn't it? Come in, Hans. The chief pulled a bottle out of his desk. And have a seat. The rather pale-faced officer sat down. What do you want to know? I have the reports. The chief made a motion towards a stack of paper on his desk. But I'd like to hear what you experienced. I took Mr. Black to the Blot hex. Mr. Black broke down the door and walked in. One quick question, Hans, the chief interrupted. Did he have his wand out when he broke down the door? No. Hans looked at his father in shock. I remember him drawing his wand as he walked into the bar. I see, the chief nodded. He's been known to use wandless magic before, and I was wondering if he used it this time. Continue. Yes, Papa. He came out a few minutes later and told me to take him to Tierparkstrasse. He ordered me to wait at our point of arrival and walked up the street. Hans took a deep breath. I called the men and we arrived at the house about 2 minutes later and found Black standing over a dead man and staring at a room full of corpses. I see, the chief nodded. Thank you, Hans. I understand what Papa. Hans's eyes were filled with confusion. Why, he was so overt. The chief poured himself a drink and motioned for his son to do the same. When I decided to ask for his help, I did it on the assumption that he would solve our problem, the same way he's done such things in the past. You expected them to die in an accident. Hans took a sip, or for it to be a clear-cut case of self-defense. Yes, I did, the chief nodded. And I was more than a bit surprised when I found out what he did. Now I want you to think, did you see him do anything illegal? No. Hans shook his head. The worst thing I saw him do was break down a door, which is punishable by a fine at most, the chief smiled. Forensics spent quite a bit of time in that house. Do you know what they found? I'm not sure, Hans shrugged his shoulders. What did they find? Nothing, the old man smiled. They couldn't even prove that any spells had been used, let alone that Black cast any, so what we have is no physical proof, and a room full of dead witnesses. But I saw Black go to the house. Hans took another sip. Doesn't that mean anything? You saw him walk towards a house, the old man nodded, but you didn't see him commit any crime. He would say that he found the house like it is. How long was he out of your sight? No more than 5 minutes. So you expect me to believe that a man was able to kill several blood purists without leaving any evidence? The chief smiled, and was able to do it in less than 5 minutes. I see, Hans nodded, but why didn't he do things the way he normally does? Some things, the old man rubbed a spot on his arm. Some things leave a mark on you. I think that your file brought up too many old memories. What do you... Hans stopped as he realized why his father was rubbing his arm. I understand, Papa. Thank you for explaining things. I'm always glad to explain things to you, Hans, the chief nodded. It looks like Black is calming down. Why do you say that, Papa? In the past few days there have been several murders. The old man gestured towards a stack of files on his desk. Some of them were messy and some of them were clean and professional. And the last 2 looked like accidents, the old man smiled, and another looks like suicide. One man got so drunk that he passed out and drowned in 2 inches of water. Another walked into traffic and was hit by a large truck. What about the suicide? Found with a rope around his neck in a locked room, though there are some people that think Black didn't kill that one. The old man laughed. They say that he killed himself because that was the only way he could think of to escape. I do have one more thing I'd like to ask if it's not too much trouble. What is it, Hans? Were they able to identify any of the spells he used to eliminate the men in the house? There were no signatures, but one of the forensic technicians said that the damage was similar to several of the old Russian battle spells. I see, Hans nodded. That does fit some of the things that people have been saying about him. What are you planning to do now? The chief finished his drink and poured another, now that your case has been closed. I still have one loose end to take care of before I finish my case, Hans smirked. And I plan on having a bit of fun with it. Then you best get to it, Hans. The chief waved his hand in dismissal. It's always best to get things done early. Goodbye, sir. Hans stood up and opened the door. Goodbye, son, the chief replied to his son's retreating back. Hans walked down the corridors until he found himself in front of the door to one of the interrogation rooms. Well, he's ready for you, sir, another officer replied. Are you sure you want us recording this? I'm sure, Hans nodded. Don't miss a second. Okay, the other officer shrugged. If that's what you want. Hans walked into the bare room and took a seat across from the suspect. Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing today? You've got nothing on me, the ugly man sneered. My arrest wasn't legal and you have to let me go. Arrest? Hans asked, with a shocked expression. You weren't arrested. You were brought down here to swear out a complaint against the man who broke the door to your business. Unless, of course, you'd rather let things go. No, the ugly man replied smugly. He broke the law and I want him to go to jail for it. Well, Hans shook his head. I don't think that he'll go to jail, but he will have to pay a rather large fine and for the repair of your property. Good, the ugly man nodded. What do I have to do now? Just sign these papers. Hans slid a stack of papers across the table and we can start things. You trying to trick me? The ugly man carefully checked the papers. I mean, this all seems to be in order. Good. Hans nodded. I wouldn't want you to be displeased by the service that you've experienced during your stay as our guest. Can I go now? One moment. Hans stood and walked towards the door. You still have to identify the man who damaged your property. Oh, the ugly man grinned. Be nice to be on the other side of the mirror for once, I guess. I'm sure. Hans nodded and knocked on the door. What do you need? The officer from before stuck his head in. I've got a complaint for you to process. Hans handed over the stack of papers. And I need you to pick up Mr. Black for me. I need him to stand in a lineup. No problem. The officer fought hard to keep his amusement hidden. I'll try to get him here as soon as possible. What did you just say? The ugly man had a look of terror on his face. Did you just tell him to get Mr. Black? Why, yes, Hans nodded. Or didn't you know that he was the man that broke the door to your bar? You didn't say anything about Mr. Black. The bartender shook his head. I don't want to complain. I want to leave things alone. I'm afraid we can do that, sir. Hans shrugged. The papers have already been filed, and there is nothing I can do to stop the process now. I don't want to go to court against Mr. Black. The ugly man's eyes darted around the room. I don't want to swear out a complaint. The only way I could stop things is if you told me that you had sworn out a false complaint. Hans kept a helpful expression on his face. And I would advise you not to do that, because the penalty for swearing out a false complaint is rather severe. I admit it. I lied. The ugly man screamed, and I done a lot of other things too. Just stop that complaint. Really? Hans had a predatory look on his face. What other things? Welcome back, everyone. Dumbledore gave the room a grandfatherly smile. I call this meeting of the Order of the Phoenix to order. My first order is that those members of the Order who have been searching for Mr. Potter on my orders stand up and address the Order and tell us what you have learned. Really, Albus? Minerva frowned. Couldn't you have found a way to phrase that without saying the word order so many times? No, I couldn't. The headmaster ate a lemon drop. If nobody has anything to report, then Alistair has something he'd like to share with us. Black's back, the scarred man leered, and he's been busy. What did he do? A random Order member asked to get the plot moving. In Italy he managed to convince the Mafia that backing the Dark Lord would Moody paused, not be to their benefit.
How did he manage to do that?
Dumbledore asked with a raised eyebrow. He told them that if they didn't comply, then he'd kill them all. The old Aura gave a wheezing laugh. Few of them didn't think he could do it and broke into his hotel room. Well, he tossed one of them out a window, another down a staircase, and the last he gutted like a fish. Moody's eyes spun around. After that he went to Switzerland. The Dark Tosser must have found out because he sent a group of men to make an example. Was anybody injured in the attack? Dumbledore's eyes turned serious. Do the Swiss authorities need any help to contain this outbreak? No one was hurt. Moody shook his head. Least no one important was hurt. Death Eaters all died in an accident before they could do anything. Off the record, Black messed with their portkey, but nobody can prove anything. Were any of the Death Eaters identified as being members of the Inner Circle? Dumbledore asked cautiously. The Swiss believe that one of the bodies might belong to Lucius Malfoy. Moody's voice held a trace of satisfaction. And if it does, I say it couldn't have happened to a better target. That might be why the minister ordered a team of Urus to go on 24-hour alert. Shacklebolt entered the conversation. He also mentioned that there may be some international travel involved in our secret mission. I see. Dumbledore nodded. Where's Mr. Black now? Germany. Moody dropped a handful of newspaper clippings on the table. And in the time he's been there, he's virtually wiped out any base of support that Voldemort might have been able to draw on. The Order spent several minutes reading the articles and passing them around. Die, Ondolzamkeit. We the editors are sorry to say that this is the last issue of Die und Duldsamkeit, the newspaper for people who hate muggles. Unfortunately, things like rising cost of production, the fact that due to Mr. Black the obituary page is larger than the size of the last 3 issues combined, and the fact that we are in fear of our lives, have caused us to reach the decision that it's time to end before we suffer an accident or are killed in a bizarre and painful way. We would like to note that Die Toleranz, the newspaper for people who love muggles and fear Mr. Black, will be coming out next week to fill the gap created by the loss of Die und Duldsamkeit. Bloodbath in Germany, see page A14, by Latest Lovegood. Death is in Germany and his name is Black. Over the past week, Germany's morgues have been filled with blood purists and other Death Eater sympathizers. They've been stabbed, beaten, hexed, poisoned. Their deaths have been quick and clean, slow and painful, and everything in between. After learning of this situation, we at the Quibbler found ourselves possessed by the need to know what started this chain of events. What we found may shock you. The trigger that caused what many are calling the Black Massacre was the death of a young Muggle-born girl that was scheduled to begin school at the start of the next term. Sources close to the investigation have revealed that Mr. Black is not being sought for questioning due to the lack of evidence connecting him to any of the crimes. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, one law enforcement official gave the following statement. The death of the little girl angered Mr. Black, and I only have one thing to say about that. Don't make him angry. You wouldn't like him when he's angry. Well, Henchgirl asked with a worried look on her face. How is he? He fell asleep right after he finished the second bottle. The professor sat down next to his assistant. I'm worried about him. I am too, Henchgirl nodded. What caused all this? He saw some terrible things today. The professor shook his head. Very terrible things. What? I can't tell you, Henchgirl. The professor had a sad look on his face. I can't bring myself to say it. I understand, Henchgirl nodded. He started talking after he finished the first bottle. The professor paused. He told me some rather shocking things. What kind of things? Some rather shocking things. The professor held up his hand. Before I tell you, I want you to remember that he's our friend, and we agreed to stand by him. I know, Professor. Henchgirl was starting to get worried. What could he have told you that would cause you to worry that I would forget? Well, the professor began. He told me, Harry awoke late the next morning with a pounding headache. Oh God, where am I? You're in our hangar, the professor replied loudly. Would you like a tour? I'd like something to kill this hangover, Harry hissed out, or something to kill myself. At the moment I don't care which one I get. I'll have Henchgirl whip something up, the professor nodded. I'll be right back. Harry spent several more minutes wallowing in agony before the professor returned. Did you get it? Yup, the professor nodded proudly. One sip of this would kill a herd of elephants. You do know I was being sarcastic about the whole killing myself thing, right? Harry asked without opening his eyes. Yes, the professor nodded nervously. Of course I did. I'll be right back with the potion. I just need to take it out of the room for a few minutes before I give it to you. Fine, Harry sighed. Why am I cursed with such a life? Here you are, the professor returned with another strange-looking potion. One sip of this will kill your headache. Thank you, Harry downed the potion. Why doesn't it taste like the bottom of a men's room floor? I asked Henchgirl about that once. The professor smiled. She said that she could make them taste terrible if I wanted, but that it would add several steps and have no purpose other than to make my life more miserable. Oh, Harry's eyes narrowed as he contemplated all the vile concoctions that Madame Pomfrey had given him over the years. Shall we take a look at this Zeppelin of yours? Let's, the professor agreed eagerly. Walk this way. Sure, Harry shrugged and began following the professor. There she is, the professor nodded proudly. 200 meters long and 42 meters in diameter. It is capable of speeds of up to 200 kiloliters per hour, and we believe that the charms will remain stable for up to 92 years without maintenance. And I still say that a blimp would have been a better choice. Henchgirl entered the conversation. There are several advantages of a non- or semi-rigid frame over a rigid frame. Silence. The professor glared up at his assistant. A non-rigid frame would not have provided the proper platform for our research. Admit it, henchgirl glared down at the professor. You just wanted to show off your great engineering skills by building the large framework. No thoughts about the fact that one of the other designs would have been better. How dare you question? Wow, Harry interrupted. Whatever it is, it's great. What did you fill it with? Nothing. The professor turned away from the glaring henchgirl. It's more efficient that way. What do you mean, nothing? Harry gave his two friends a strange look. How can you fill it with nothing? It's all about volume, the professor began to lecture. If it weighs less than the material it displaces, then it floats. If it weighs more, it sinks, and if it weighs the same amount, then it has neutral buoyancy. But how can you Harry stopped for a moment to think. Never mind, I don't want to know how you do it. How do you go up and down? To go down, we pump air from the surrounding atmosphere into our tanks. To go up, we pump the air out, and to get neutral buoyancy, we either pump air in or out, depending on if we are descending or ascending. Like a submarine? Harry asked cautiously. What? The professor asked. It's a boat that goes underwater, Harry answered. I think it works the same way that your airship does. Henchgirl, make a note of it. How do you prevent collisions with other aircraft? Collisions? Other aircraft? The professor looked nervous. You do know that the skies are filled with aircraft, don't you? But my research indicated that the Muggles have mostly given up using airships. The professor looked confused. If that's so, then what are they using? Planes, helicopters, all kinds of things. Harry shrugged. Are they really so widespread? The professor was intrigued. My sources indicated that they were only used by military and by some of the more wealthy families. Things have changed. Harry sighed. Any other questions? No, the professor shook his head. Thank you again, Mr. Black. You've prevented what could have been a terrible accident by informing us of these other aircraft. Happy to help, Harry smiled. What are you using to power the propellers? Henchgirl and I constructed several Tesla disk turbines to provide the necessary power. The professor smiled. We were going to use Stirling engines, but the Tesla design looked more interesting. That's good, I guess. Harry replied, making a mental note to find out more about engineering. What are you going to do about a crew? So long as we don't try anything too ambitious, Henchgirl and I are all the crew that this craft needs. The professor smiled. Did you have any more ideas for items that we could build you? I don't know, Harry shrugged. Might be a good idea to have a backup wand of some sort, one that could be easily concealed as something else or something. I'd also like to get some sort of invisibility or concealment device that can't be seen through like an invisibility cloak can. Invisibility cloaks can be seen through. The professor's eyebrows shot up. I didn't know that. Who can do it? I know for a fact that Alastair Moody and Albus Dumbledore can. Harry scratched his chin. Not sure how Dumbledore does it, but Moody has a magical spinning eye. Fascinating, the professor was lost in thought. It may take some time before I am able to come up with something like that. No problem, Harry shrugged. If you can build something like that, great. If not, then oh well. Thank you for your faith in us, the professor smiled. We'll get on it as soon as we figure out how to solve the mid-air collision problem you mentioned earlier. Why not try something like what's used on the night bus? Harry asked with an interested expression on his face. It has to drive through busy streets and it doesn't crash into anything. That wouldn't work, the professor waved his hand. But choose me for 1 minute. Sure, Harry shrugged his shoulders. Henchgirl. Henchgirl. The professor ran off in search of his assistant. Harry's smile dropped as soon as his friend was out of sight. He was still having problems trying to figure out how he was supposed to feel after what he had seen and done. This vacation was supposed to be a few months of relaxation. It was supposed to be a lifetime of living condensed into a summer holiday. Instead, it seemed as if the universe was refusing to let him alone. It seemed as if he was destined to be attacked and dragged into other people's fights. Yes? Good afternoon, Mrs. Granger. The headmaster smiled. I was wondering if I could talk to your daughter for a few minutes. Of course, Mrs. Granger smiled. Come right in and have a seat while I get Hermione. Thank you, the headmaster gave his best grandfatherly grin. You wanted to see me, Professor? Hermione asked, entering the room. Yes, The headmaster nodded. I'm trying to get into touch with Harry, and I was hoping that you would be willing to help me. Why do you need to talk to him? Hermione asked with a neutral expression. There are a few things that I need to tell him. Things that I should have told him a long time ago. The headmaster exhaled. I would also like to make sure that he has a way to contact the Order if he needs help or is in trouble. Oh, Hermione frowned. So you're not going to make him go back to his relative's house? No, Dumbledore shook his head. I came to a realization after hearing your theory about why he left. There is an old saying, those who are willing to sacrifice freedom for security deserve neither freedom nor security. I wondered what that had made me, the man who was willing to take another's freedom to keep them safe. I'm sure you were doing what you thought was best, Hermione tried to cheer the old man. There is a saying about good intentions, the headmaster forced a smile. But that isn't what I came here to talk to you about. Do you have any idea where we might find Harry? Mr. Weasley seemed to think that he would be living or working in or around a Quidditch stadium. Ron sometimes has a hard time telling the difference between his wants and dreams and other people's. Hermione frowned. Continuing that thought, I don't think you would find Harry in any of the world's great libraries or bookstores. Maybe in a circus or around an amusement park. Maybe a zoo. What makes you think that? Dumbledore's eyes were filled with interest. I think that he wants to fill an entire summer with things that he's never been able to experience before. Hermione paused. Harry didn't have much of a childhood, so I think that he might be trying to give himself one. Thank you, Albus silently cursed himself for being such a fool. You've been most helpful. If you find Harry, Hermione bit her lip. Tell him to write me Ron too. I will, and if you find Harry, Dumbledore pulled two small objects out of his sleeve. Give him one of these. What are they, Professor? Hermione took the two objects. Have you been following the Quibbler's coverage of Mr. Black? I haven't been reading the Quibbler, Hermione shook her head, and I don't know who Mr. Black is. Mr. Black is a wizard that has been traveling through Europe making life difficult for the dark side. Dumbledore smiled. These two devices are portable flow connections that were developed by some of Mr. Black's people. I was able to use a bit of influence to acquire these two before they became available to the general public. There is a small instruction manual engraved on the side of the device, and I've been told that their appearance will go unnoticed in the Muggle world. Thank you, Professor. Hermione smiled. Thank you, Hermione. The headmaster returned her smile. If you see Harry, tell him that I am very sorry. I will. We're losing too many of our readers to that damned rag Lovegood owns. A large fat man waved his arms in a comic fashion. Does anybody have any idea of how we can regain our shrinking market share and bring our profits back up? We could shift our focus away from gossip and barely substantiated rumor, one of the other men suggested. Maybe the public's appetite for news has changed since the reappearance of he who must not be named. I like it, the fat man nodded. The public wants fantasy to get away from the reality of the Dark Lord. It will also cut costs when we fire most of our reporters. Who needs reporters when you're just making things up? Fudge? A monkey? Our sources reveal that since Fudge's swearing in as Minister of Magic, Ministry Potions Masters have been receiving regular orders for Polyjuice Potion. This may not seem odd until one points out that Slappy the magical chimp disappeared from his cage the same year that our minister started Hogwarts. For those that don't remember, Slappy was the chimp that was known to use accidental magic to change the color of his droppings. Goodbye, Professor, hench girl. Harry smiled. Thanks for cheering me up. I really needed your support. Think nothing of it, my friend, the professor smiled. Just keep giving us ideas to work on. I will, Harry nodded, as he turned to walk away. Harry walked several blocks before stopping and hailing a cab. Sometimes he forgot that he didn't have to worry about money like normal people did. It wasn't like he was going to need it in a year or two. Where to? The cab driver didn't even bother to look at his customer. Center of town, Harry closed his eyes. Wake me when we arrive, and take your time. I'm in no hurry. You got it, the driver nodded. Anything else? No. The ride passed in silence, and the driver took several nervous glances at the apparently sleeping man in the back seat of his cab. "We've stopped," Harry commented, not bothering to open his eyes. "Have we arrived?" "Yes, sir," the driver stared straight ahead. "Do you need anything else?" "No," Harry handed the man several bills. "Have a good day." "I will, sir," the driver nodded, taking the bills. "You as well." "Thank you," Harry walked out of the cab and began muttering to himself. "Austria, I think the best to go now would be Austria." The cab driver's hands shook as he watched the man leave. He hadn't understood the order from above when they told him to keep an eye out for the frightening man with the unrecognizable face, and if he had been in any other line of work, then he would have laughed it off and forgotten about it. The driver calmed his hands and carefully pulled into traffic. The strange man had given him a message to pass, and he didn't think that it would be healthy to delay its delivery. It did not take long for Harry to find the town's sole magical shop. Taking a nervous breath, he walked in. One moment, an old man that Harry presumed to be the shopkeeper spoke from the back of the shop. "What can I do for you?" "I need to find a way to arrange transportation to Austria." Harry managed a weak smile. "I can arrange something for you," the old man smiled, "but I'm afraid that it might take a bit of time." "How long?" Harry asked with a sigh. "Depends," the old man smiled. "Might be best to spend a bit of time looking around my shop. I'm sure that I'll have something ready by the time you want to make your purchases." "All right," Harry nodded. "The best things will be through that doorway," the old man commented. "You might want to start there. The things on display out here are just cheap trinkets for the tourists." "If you say so," Harry agreed with a shrug. He was beginning to suspect that there wasn't a sane shopkeep in the world. Walking through the indicated doorway, Harry spent several minutes browsing and finally returned to the counter with a small selection of the odd items that he had seen. "I see that you were able to find some things." The shopkeeper looked over the items that Harry had placed on the table. "Interesting selection. I mostly chose the things that I didn't recognize," Harry admitted with a grin. "This," the man held up an odd-looking blue flag with a golden disc surrounded by a green wreath with red flower, small Union Jack in the top corner. "I believe that this is the regimental colors for a unit of British infantry. I'm not sure where it came from, and I'm afraid that I can't tell you much about it." "That's fine," Harry shrugged. "I have a friend that would love figure out where it came from." "I'm glad." The second item, the shop owner held up a large iron ball, is a portable dungeon made for some marquis in France as a recreational item. It comes with a full assortment of devices and a full reference library. "Recreational item?" Moving right along, the man picked up a length of chain. "This is a steel whip made of several thousand interlocking rings. It has a large assortment of enchantments that allow a skilled user to do a number astounding stunts." "Thanks," Harry smiled. "Is my portkey ready yet?" "Before I answer that, I think that you'll be wanting to buy one of these too." The shopkeeper placed a large stein alongside Harry's other purchases. "What is it?" Harry eyed the strange cup with a large measure of suspicion. "It's just something to drink beer out of," the old man smiled. "Why?" "This is a magical shop." Harry took a step back. "And I'm waiting for you to tell me why you're selling something so normal looking in this shop." "Oh, is that all?" The old man smiled. "Now that you mention it, I may have accidentally put a few charms on it, so it automatically fills itself from the taps at a few of the local breweries." "Oh?" Harry began to relax. "For how long?" "I'm not exactly sure how long the enchantments will hold up." The old man shrugged. After all the things that his cousins were inflicting on the boy, he deserved some sort of compensation. "Few years at least." "I'll take it." Harry couldn't wait to show it to the twins. "Thank you. And since you're getting that," the shopkeeper grinned, "you'll have to have one of these." "One of what?" Harry closed his eyes and began rubbing his temples. "An ever-full flask." The store owner dropped a large silver flask on the pile. "Fills with your choice of several dozen non-magical liquids, just the thing to complement an ever-full stein." "Okay," Harry nodded. "Is the port?" "And a perfect complement to the stein and mug is this book." The shopkeep put out a rather large book. "The Single Wizard's Guide to Keeping His Witch or Witches or Pack of Vila Happy." "Fine," Harry forced a smile. "Can I have that portkey now?" "No problem." The shopkeep held out his hand. The port key is ready, and all that you need to do is pay to on your way. One moment, Harry dug out a handful of coins. Here you are. Thank you, the old man handed back a cloth bag containing Harry's purchases and a small glass bead. It will activate in 3, 2, 1. Harry felt the world spin, and the port key dragged him to his next destination. Good afternoon, a man in a strange uniform greeted Harry upon his arrival. How are you today? I'm fine, Harry began to relax. How are things in Austria? No attacks or odd occurrences? No, sir, replied the now curious customs agent. Why do you ask? I've been under a lot of stress the last few days, and I was hoping to get a chance to relax without being blindsided by all the weirdness that usually inflicts itself on my life. I see, the customs agent frowned. What's in the bag? This, Harry glanced down at the bag containing the items he collected in the odd shop. Just a few things I picked up in Germany. May I have a look? Sure. Harry placed the bag on a convenient table. The customs agent's eyes widened in astonishment as he took his first look. You say that you picked these items up in Germany? Yes. Harry nodded. Is something wrong? No. The man shook his head. Nothing is wrong. It's just history is a hobby of mine, and when I saw the flag, could I ask your name? Black. Harry held up his passport. That won't be necessary, the agent returned the shopping bag. And let me be the first to welcome you to Austria, and to wish you good luck and good hunting. Thanks. Harry gave slow nod of acknowledgement. Was there something else you needed? No, sir. The agent smiled. I'm sure that you must be tired from your travels. So why don't you head into town and find a hotel while I go report to my superiors? Okay? Harry walked away from the customs desk and into the rest of the building. The customs agent smiled as he watched the smooth departure of the mysterious Mr. Black. He pitied the fool that Mr. Black had come to eliminate. Stepping out of the customs room, Harry was almost overwhelmed by the amount of people rushing back and forth. Excuse me, a young woman spoke up, distracting Harry from the number of people rushing around. Would you like me to help you arrange transportation? What? Harry turned to look at the woman. I'm sorry, I just didn't expect to see that. Harry waved his hands to indicate the scene. I understand, the woman nodded. Vienna is unique in that it is one of the few cities to use a large Muggle airport to house its magical in-processing center. And they don't notice anything odd? For the most part, they're tired, frustrated, and in an unfamiliar place. The girl shrugged. When I consider all that, I sometimes think that we don't even need to keep up the charms. I see, Harry nodded. Makes sense, I suppose. Now what was that question you asked me before? Oh, the girl blushed. I was just asking if you needed me to help you arrange transportation. I might, Harry nodded. What are my options? Well, the girl smiled. The first thing you need to do is decide if you want to use magic or Muggle methods of transportation. Muggle, I suppose, Harry smiled. Okay, the girl nodded. Do you need any help arranging things in the Muggle world? No, Harry shook his head. I don't believe I'll have any trouble arranging things. Then have a nice day, sir, the girl smiled cheerfully. You as well, Harry smiled, then turned to walk into the airport. Harry spent a bit of time exploring the airport, marveling at its sights, sounds, and smells. Never before had he experienced something so seemingly chaotic. It was all so new, all so fascinating. And before he knew it, several hours had passed, most of which spent watching the planes take off and land, until finally noticing the time, and a bit embarrassed at the fact that he had spent the entire day staring at something so common as takeoffs and landings, Harry began to make his way to the rail station. Something to read on the train? An older gentleman asked, holding up a newspaper. Only a shilling, and well worth it. All right. Harry took a moment to pull out a handful of the appropriate currency. Thank you. Always happy to help a traveler. The old man smiled. Despite the fact that he had been born without a significant amount of magic, he still suffered from the family curse, and he was still loyal to the cause. It didn't hurt that it allowed him a chance to make a bit of money of a group of rather dull blood purists. After all, who else would be dim enough to go hunting for the infamous Mr. Black? Here's your change, sir. Have a good day. Thank you, Harry smiled. I will. The old man smiled as he thought of the chaos that he saw coming. Thanks to his actions, the damage to the Dark Lord's forces would be immense. Not bad for a squib that wasn't normally good enough to merit the notice of the more uptight members of Wizarding Society. Harry had only a short wait before his train arrived, and he quickly found a seat in the last car. Opening his newspaper to pass the time, he soon lost all interest in the world around. "Well?" the rat-like man asked nervously. "After hearing your problem, I think I've found a solution," replied a young man with a smile, "though I still think it would be best if I were allowed to examine the site of the accident to make sure that my calculations are correct." "And it's still impossible to allow that," Wormtail hissed. The Dark Lord hadn't been pleased by the portkey accident that had destroyed the team in Switzerland, and had taken his displeasure out on his one minion capable of making international portkeys. "How does it work?" "It casts a small charm to check the elevation of the target area a few seconds before rematerialization, and automatically aborts if the projected landing site is more than 10 feet above the ground level." The young man resisted the urge to laugh, though I must admit that I'm still a bit mystified as to how something like this became necessary. "I'm not supposed to reveal trade secrets, and you know it." Wormtail frowned. At present the portkey maker was too important to alienate. But as soon as he began to suspect something, or 3 seconds after they acquired another wizard capable of making international portkeys— "Well," the portkey maker spoke, interrupting Wormtail's train of thought, "don't hesitate to come back if you have any more problems or questions, though for the life of me I still can't understand why a pet shop would need such highly specialized portkeys." "That's not for you to know," Wormtail tried and failed to look menacing, before disappearing with a pop, reappearing before a throne in a darkened manor house.
Well?
The dark figure on the throne hissed. "I have it, master." Wormtail fell to his knees and began kissing the hem of his master's robe. "Then take it to the strike team," the dark voice replied. "Yes, master." Wormtail stood and slowly began backing out of the room. "One more thing, Wormtail." "Yes, master." The rat-like man cowered. "I want you to accompany the team," the dark voice hissed. "I want a personal report on the mission after your return." "Yes, master," the rat-like man whimpered as he fled the room. Wormtail's look of fear transformed into a superior sneer as he entered the room that had been assigned to the group of Death Eaters that had been chosen for the task of eliminating Mr. Black. "Stand up," Wormtail's sneer deepened, "and touch the portkey. You don't want to have to explain to the Dark Lord why you weren't on the mission he assigned to you, and I'm not going to wait for you to ready yourselves." The assorted Death Eaters all touched the portkey and readied their wands. Just before the portkey activated, Wormtail smiled. "Mr. Black will die tonight." The group of Death Munchers appeared in mid-air, and for one frightening second, Wormtail knew what that last team felt before they met their end. Several Death Eaters cried out in surprise as gravity exerted its control and dragged them to the Fate, which happened to be about 1 meter below their arrival point. "Who streaked? Who's the coward in the Dark Lord's army?" Wormtail shouted, trying to cover up his own nervousness. Most of the assorted Death Eaters ignored the rat, though 1 or 2 of the newer recruits looked down at their feet in shame. "Where are we and where's Black?" The senior Death Eater hissed. "You had better not have made a mistake, rat." "I made no mistakes." Wormtail cowered, forgetting his earlier show of command. "It looks like we're on the tracks for the Hogwarts Express." "It does, doesn't it?" the senior grudgingly admitted. "Black must be in the castle. The muggle-loving old fool must have put up new wards." "That's right," Wormtail admitted nervously. "It's not my fault." The remainder of Wormtail's words were drowned out by the bellow of a train's horn and the shriek of its brakes. Most of the assorted Death Eaters didn't even have time to scream before they were ground into paste under the lead car's wheels. Ahead, Harry looked up from his newspaper as he heard the terrible shriek of a train's brakes off in the distance. Shaking his head, Harry wondered for a second what had happened on the track behind to cause such a sound, then shrugged his shoulders and went back to his newspaper. He'd hear about it if it was anything important.